You know, the fun thing about this is I got this movie. I've kind of been there, and I understood kind of where you were coming from, and you've been around long enough. I'm sure you've gone through these motions, so like you start doing something for a long time, and you start to like kind of cruise a little bit, and then you like kind of get focused. When Ely comes in, he starts to get something. I guess some kind of meaning comes into his life, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a guy, what I tried to find in the opening is this is a guy that's probably been a rock star dad. You know, he's shown up to the birthday party with the great present. He takes her to ice skating, then gets her home a few hours later. But I think that ice skating scene is the crucial scene in the movie where he just starts to notice her again. And it's horrible to say that he hasn't been noticing her, but the truth is he's been in this monotonous, empty place and been kind of in a major crisis inside him. So I think that's been clouding his sense of time and his sense of choices. And I think once Elle comes into play, she's so refreshing, like a little sunflower, you know, like a little hippie child that just kind of brightens the room. And I think in that ice skating scene is very poignant because I think that's the beginning we see him wake up. Then through the course of those 2-3 weeks, that amount of time they spend, which is longer than he's used to, which scares him obviously at first.
Yeah.
But then he embraces it, and I think he gets a natural high for the first time in his life. He doesn't need a fix of strippers and women and supermodels and pills to help his numbness. What he does by the end of the movie is, I think, has a natural high because I think he's woken up inside.
Absolutely.
And I think when you change something about yourself and you feel a certain inner power, it is a natural high. You don't need those pills anymore. You don't need that beard.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I loved at the heart of this movie was a character that has everything but yet has a gaping hole inside. And I think that, you know, people in Wall Street could identify with that. A journalist could identify with that. The owner of the Four Seasons could identify with that. If, you know, even though he's a billionaire, you know, if you're unhappy inside, you got to fix those things, and money's not going to fix that. And so I found that there was a likable quality that I had to find underneath all these flaws. By doing that, hopefully you root for him and you go with him, and then by the end you're really heartfeltly with him and you want to see him become a greater person and a better dad. And I think the end is really him becoming a man for the first time in his life.
You know also what was interesting, and you think of the hotel. The hotel was actually a character in this because you don't get a chance to really film in this hotel, and it's a beautiful place with a lot of history. Talk about that.
Yeah, I would say the chateau is almost the third character of the movie. I mean, some would argue that maybe the Ferrari's the third character. You know, it's interesting who gets billing above of who, the Ferrari or the chateau, because again,
well, when you can have your mail as Johnny Marco's piece, you know, that's interesting.
No, I mean, living at the chateau, I mean, again, Sophia kind of made me a partner on this beyond just an actor for hire, which I am. You know, she made me feel like I was a real partner because she was writing from a man's point of view. She knew I was going to be in every frame of this film with the exception of maybe one shot when they're playing the Wii tennis. I think it's the only frame I'm not in. You know, an immense amount of responsibility, but having the chateau being the real place, you know, we couldn't have done this film without that. And there's a certain safety net with a hotel that Sophia talks about so eloquently, which I think is really right. You feel safe in a hotel. So for a guy that's also in crisis, people say, well, why didn't he live in a mansion in Bel Air? You know, well, because he wouldn't have known what to do with himself. You know, you need the room service. He needs help because this guy's on his own here and he's lost. And so what I loved about him, though, is he's so respectful to those room service guys, to the valet parkers, you know, to the actor that wants to talk to him. The last thing he wants to do is talk about acting class with some young actor in a party in his room. Yet he gives him that because he is a genuine guy, and I think there's a sweetness to him that underneath these flaws really becomes alive by the end. And I love the arc and the transformation that this film goes through from where we open with him to where we end, and that's purely Sophia. You know, that was purely just her gifts as a filmmaker, going without dialogue, going without any cliche. You know, going against the grain of everything we normally see in films, where things are overly explained, exposition,
which
speeches.
is why it's called Somewhere.
Yeah, and I think I just loved working in this environment. It was the first time for me like this, and I hope I can do it again. You know?
Me too, because it was great.